Lyra stood under the pale light of the twin moons, at the same dusty corner of the old city's market street. For 500 days she had come back to this place. Each dawn she walked out of her small home, passed through narrow alleys, and made her way to that corner. She sat there quietly. She watched the crowd. She watched the sky. She waited. The city around her pulsed with life. Alien merchants sold glowing fruits. Hovering carts drifted between stalls. Children laughed, weaving through legs. Soldiers in steel plates marched past, but Lyra paid little mind to them. Her eyes stayed fixed on the street ahead, hoping someone would walk through. Someone she believed would. She remembered that day, the day he promised. The air had burned and the city walls were shaking. Humans and aliens clashed in a riot. In the chaos she was cornered, terrified. She was small and fragile on her world, and she had nowhere to hide. Then a human appeared, tall, strong, gentle. He shielded her with his body. When the guards came, he told them, "Don't harm her." He stood between them and Lyra, facing blasters and shouts. Somehow he made them pause. In that moment he whispered to her, "I will come back. Wait here for me. I promise." Then he vanished into smoke and fire. Lyra had held on to those words every day since. She knew the promise might be foolish. She knew the dangers. But her heart would not let her forget. She clutched a small metal coin, a human token he gave her, in her jacket pocket. It glowed faintly like a heartbeat. She touched it when the night was cold. She pressed it when doubt struck. People in the market talked. They called her the waiting girl. They whispered that she was broken or cursed or insane. She sits there all day, merchants said. Why does she not move on? Children dared each other. Go ask her if she is waiting for someone. Some would run up, touch her shoulder, and flee when she did not answer. Others tried to speak, but she shook her head. Her silence became part of her legend. Still, she did not grow bitter. She did not curse the skies. She only waited. On the 500th morning, the twin moons faded early. A thin, cold breeze blew. Lyra's breath hung in the air. She stood a little earlier than usual. She dusted her clothes, adjusted the coin in her pocket. She turned her face up toward the sky, half expecting to see a ship or a silhouette. Through the city came a low hum, distant, deep. She paused. A thrumming vibration ran below her feet. She looked up. Ships hung beyond the upper clouds, their lights blinking. One light flashed and made a pattern she knew, a pulse that made her heart skip. It was the same pattern he used when he first contacted her. Her pulse quickened. Her breath caught. She did not move. But her eyes changed, sharpened, hopeful. Merchants paused in their work. The clang of metal stopped. A child froze with fruit in hand. The crowd looked up. The hum grew louder. The ship slid through the upper atmosphere, descending slowly over the city. It cast a long shadow. Lyra's legs trembled. She stepped forward a little, but then stopped. She dared not believe too soon. Her mind raced. Is this him? Is he here now after all these days? A man stepped out of the ship's ramp at sudden, silhouette against burning clouds. The crowd gasped. Soldiers shifted, weapons ready. The man took a few steady steps, walking down the ship's ramp. He looked like the human she remembered. Tall, with a broad frame, scars across a cheek, but familiar. But the crowd blocked her view. A merchant leaned forward. A child tugged at her sleeve. Lyra pushed through, heart pounding, ignoring the glances. She reached the front. She held her breath. The man paused at the bottom of the ramp. He raised his hand. He looked at the crowd, then his gaze locked with hers. For a moment, time stilled. The city noise faded. The wind held its breath. Their eyes met. Lyra's heart thundered. The coin in her pocket glowed stronger, heating her palm. Tears threatened. After 500 days of waiting, he was finally here. Then a blaster shot echoed. Soldiers shouted. The ship's lights flickered. The man turned, shouted something. Lyra's mind blurred. The world spun. She reached out, stepping forward, but a soldier grabbed her arm. She pulled free. The man dropped behind cover. The ship's doors began to close. Lyra stood at the corner, watching. The promise hung in her mind alive. The man, the one who promised, had come back. And yet, something was wrong. Evan sat inside his small quarters on the mining world of Carson 9. The air smelled of iron and dust. Machines hummed outside, drilling through black stone. He stared at an old communicator lying on his desk. The small device was cracked, its light weak, but it still blinked once every few seconds. That blinking was her signal, the same one he had taught her before he left. He ran a hand through his hair and sighed. 500 days. He had counted each one. Every night when the drills stopped, he thought of her standing there waiting. He had promised to come back, and he had broken that promise. The war between humans and her kind had changed everything. After the riot, he was recalled, interrogated, and sent to the edge of the galaxy to work under surveillance. They said his contact with an alien girl was a threat to the Alliance. He tried to explain she was just a child back then, just someone he saved, but no one listened. Orders were orders, so he stayed quiet and waited for the right time. Now the time had come. The signal he had kept hidden suddenly pulsed stronger last night. The pattern was exact. Slow, steady, then 2 quick flashes. That was her way of saying she was still waiting. He opened an old journal and looked at a small photo inside. It was taken during calmer days. He stood with a group of soldiers smiling awkwardly. In the corner of the photo he could see a shadow, her small figure half hidden behind his leg the day he first met her. He could almost hear her soft voice saying, "You will come back, right?" The mining alarm broke his thoughts. He turned toward the noise, but his mind stayed on her. He felt something burning inside him, a quiet shame mixed with hope. He powered up his ship, an old cargo vessel barely held together. Rust showed on the walls and half of its systems blinked red. He didn't care. He had flown worse. He entered coordinates for her city, Vallis Prime. The computer warned him. Zone restricted. Entry punishable. He ignored it. He pressed the ignition. The engines roared like beasts waking after a long sleep. The hangar guards turned, shouting, but he was already in the air. Stars streaked across the window as the ship broke free from gravity. For a moment he smiled. The first real smile in months. His hands shook on the controls. He was going back to her world, the one they told him to forget. Hours passed. The ship drifted through silent space. He leaned back, remembering everything. He remembered how she had cried the day he left. She was younger then, her hair silver blue, her eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. He remembered promising her safety and then being dragged away by soldiers. He remembered shouting that he would return, that he would find her. He never imagined she would take those words so seriously. But she did. And now he had to make them real. A light flashed on his radar, ships patrolling the alien border. He slowed down, switching the engine to stealth. His heart pounded. He knew what would happen if they caught him. Humans were banned there now. They would shoot on sight. He guided the ship through asteroid dust, avoiding scanners. The controls buzzed, the fuel low, but he pushed on. When he finally broke through the clouds of her planet, the light of the twin suns filled the cockpit. He stared down at the city, the same place he once fought in. It looked peaceful now, rebuilt and shining, but he knew somewhere inside that beauty stood the same corner, the same girl still waiting. He whispered softly, "Lyra, I'm coming." The ship descended lower, engines silent. His stomach tightened as he saw the market district. He could almost picture her there, standing quietly with that coin in her hand. But he didn't know what awaited him below. He didn't know that the government had declared her a symbol of defiance. He didn't know that soldiers were ordered to arrest her the next time she appeared. All he knew was that his promise was about to be tested. As his ship touched the outer atmosphere, lightning cracked across the sky. Static filled his comms. The old human beacon pulsed once more, weak but alive. He smiled and whispered again, "Hold on, Lyra. I'm almost there." The engines roared. The clouds parted. The planet opened before him like a memory reborn. And somewhere below, in the heart of the city, a girl lifted her head, sensing him near. The promise was alive again. The city of Vallis Prime had changed, but some things never faded. The corner where Lyra waited had become a quiet landmark. Every merchant in the district knew it. Children whispered about it. Even guards patrolling near the market slowed down when passing by. Everyone had heard the story, the alien girl who waited for a human for 500 days. Some laughed at the idea. Others called it devotion, but most spoke her name with a mix of fear and pity. Rumors traveled faster than ships. They said she had seen the human again during the last market gathering. Some swore they saw him too. tall in a dark coat, walking through smoke. Others claimed it was a ghost, a trick of the light. Lyra ignored the talk. She sat by the same broken pillar, the coin still in her hand. Every time the wind blew, it brushed her silver-blue hair across her face. Her glowing eyes never left the street ahead. Merchants began using her image to draw attention. One sold charms shaped like coins. Another sold a drink called the Waiting Promise. People took pictures, smiling beside her corner. Lyra never spoke, never looked at them. Her silence made them uneasy. One evening, a group of city guards approached her. Their leader, an officer with dark green armor, stood tall before her. "You are not allowed to gather attention," he said. "Leave this area." She looked up calmly. "I am waiting," she said simply. "For whom?" he asked. "For a human who promised to return." The guards exchanged uneasy looks. The officer frowned. "Humans are enemies now," he said. "No human would return here," she smiled faintly. "Then I will be the proof they can." The officer's jaw tightened. He turned away. "Foolish hope," he muttered. But deep down even he felt something shift. As the sun set, the city lights came alive. High above, strange shapes moved in the clouds, silent ships with human markings. Few noticed. Only Lyra's eyes caught the pattern of their lights. They blinked in rhythm, slow, steady, 2 quick pulses, the same pattern, the same code. She rose to her feet slowly, heart beating fast. Could it really be him again? Her mind told her it was impossible. Her heart refused to listen. A boy selling fruit nearby noticed her sudden movement. "Miss Lyra," he said softly, "you look different tonight." "I can feel him," she whispered. The boy frowned. "Who?" "The one who made the promise." That night she walked away from the corner for the first time. The crowd watched in silence. Some followed her at a distance. She moved through narrow streets, her steps certain, guided by something unseen. She reached an old communication tower at the city's edge. The tower was broken, unused for years. She climbed the stairs slowly. Wind howled through open gaps. From the top she could see the whole city glowing below. Above her the night sky burned with moving lights. Patrol ships, traders, but among them one light flashed differently. Her coin glowed warmer, reacting to the signal. She held it high, and it shone brighter than ever. The wind lifted her hair as she whispered, "I am still here." Far above, in the cockpit of an old human ship, Evan saw the faint shimmer on his scanner. His eyes widened. The coordinates matched exactly. He leaned closer to the screen. "That's her," he whispered. Lyra's light flickered. She felt something answer back, a short burst in the same pattern. She smiled through tears. Below, people in the street saw the tower glowing faintly and began talking again. Some said the human had returned. Others said it was a sign from the heavens. Rumors grew stronger. The city began to buzz with quiet fear. By morning, officials had sealed the tower. Guards surrounded the area. But the people kept whispering about the girl, the light, and the promise that refused to die. Lyra was brought back to her corner. She sat again, calm and silent. Yet her eyes were no longer just waiting. They were certain. She knew he was near now. The city could feel it too. Evan's ship broke through the thick clouds above Vallis Prime. The engines hummed softly as he slowed the craft to a quiet drift. The city lights spread below him like a sea of gold and silver. He had dreamed of this sight for years, yet his heart was heavy. He knew this place did not welcome humans anymore, but one face, one promise had brought him back. He turned off the transponder and switched the ship to manual flight. The warning on his console flashed again. "Entry forbidden." He ignored it. His hand tightened on the controls. He whispered to himself, "I will not leave without her." Down below, the market was alive with voices and lights. He guided the ship between tall towers, staying low to avoid patrol sensors. His eyes scanned every street corner. Then, for a brief second, he saw her. A small figure in silver blue light sitting under the same pillar. She was older now, but there was no doubt. It was Lyra. His breath caught. He had imagined this moment 1,000 times. But before he could land, the radar alarm screamed. Red dots filled the screen, patrol ships incoming. The alien security forces had detected him. He dove lower, weaving between buildings. Energy blasts lit up the night sky. The air shook with thunder. Civilians screamed and ran for cover. Evan gritted his teeth, forcing the ship to the ground near the outskirts of the district. The landing was rough. Metal scraped, sparks flew, and the engine died with a sharp hiss. He jumped out before the smoke cleared, covering his face with a hood. His boots hit the wet pavement. Around him, chaos spread. Sirens wailed. He moved fast through narrow alleys, guided by memory and instinct. He reached the market square just as soldiers began closing in. The air smelled of ozone and burning metal. People shouted, pushing through the crowd. Lyra stood in the middle, looking up, searching the sky. Her coin glowed faintly, responding to his signal. Evan's heart pounded. He wanted to call out her name, but stopped himself. One wrong sound could get her captured. He moved closer, keeping to the shadows. A soldier shouted orders. "Seal the area. The human ship is down. Find the pilot." Lyra turned sharply toward the voice. Her eyes glowed brighter. She felt him near, though she couldn't see him yet. Her heart told her he was there. Then the crowd parted for a moment and their eyes met. Just like that first day years ago. Evan froze. Time seemed to stop. She took a small step forward. The soldiers noticed her movement and turned. "You there, stop." Evan reached for his belt, pulled a flash grenade, and threw it. A bright burst filled the square. People screamed and ducked. In that confusion, he grabbed Lyra's arm. She gasped, feeling the familiar strength of his hand. "It's you," she whispered. "Not now," he said quickly. "We have to move." They ran together through the smoke, turning corners as energy bolts scorched the walls behind them. Lyra's feet slipped on the wet stone, but Evan caught her before she fell. The sirens grew louder. "Where are we going?" she asked breathlessly. "Somewhere safe," he replied. "I have a plan." He guided her through an old tunnel under the market. The air was damp, filled with the smell of rust. Above them, soldiers shouted orders. The tunnel lights flickered as they passed. When they reached the other side, Evan stopped to catch his breath. Lyra turned to face him fully for the first time. Her eyes were wet, shining like liquid light. "You came back," she said softly. "I told you I would," he replied. She smiled, a trembling, unbelieving smile. For a moment the noise outside faded. The world felt still again. Then explosions echoed through the tunnels. Dust fell from the ceiling. They had been traced. Evan grabbed her hand again. "We're not safe yet. Come on." They ran deeper into the underground passages, the light from her glowing coin guiding the way. The path led toward the old communication district, the one place where he could send a false signal to throw off the guards. Behind them, shouts grew closer. The soldiers were relentless. Evan pulled Lyra behind a broken gate and whispered, "If we get separated, keep the coin. It will lead me to you." "I will never leave it," she said. He nodded and looked out at the night through a crack in the wall. Fires burned across the skyline. Ships hovered above like dark birds hunting their prey. Through fire, he whispered, "I said I would come back, and I did." Lyra looked at him, her voice quiet but certain. "And I waited." The tunnel shook again as a blast hit nearby. But now they were no longer just a man and a girl. They were the promise itself. Alive, running through fire, and the whole city would soon know it. The night was heavy with smoke and noise. Evan and Lyra ran until their breath came sharp and painful. The sound of sirens faded behind them, replaced by the quiet hum of underground machines. They reached an old transport tunnel where light flickered weakly through broken panels. Evan stopped, checking the scanner on his wrist. "They're closing in," he said. Lyra nodded, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. "We can hide here," she whispered. But before they could move farther, the tunnel wall exploded. The blast threw them both to the ground. Dust filled the air. Evan pulled Lyra close, shielding her from debris. When he looked up, armored soldiers surrounded them. "Don't move," a voice ordered. Evan reached for his blaster, but Lyra stopped him. "No," she said softly, "please." "Not again," he froze. The soldiers dragged him away. Lyra shouted his name, but one of the guards struck her and everything turned black. When she opened her eyes again, she was in a metal cell. The walls glowed with soft red light. Her head throbbed. Her hands were bound with energy cuffs. Across from her, a large mirror reflected her tired face. She could not see beyond it, but she knew people were watching. A door slid open. The same officer who had spoken to her in the market stepped inside. He looked calm but tired. "You brought chaos to our city," he said. "The human escaped. But you will not." Lyra stared at him silently. "Tell us what he wants," he demanded. "Tell us why you protect him." She shook her head. "He is not an enemy. He invaded restricted space, the officer said coldly. He started a riot. People are afraid because of you. She met his eyes and said quietly, People are afraid because they forgot how to hope. The officer said nothing for a long moment. Then he left and the lights dimmed. Lyra sat in silence. The air in the cell felt heavy. She touched her wrist, feeling the outline of the coin still hidden under her sleeve. The guards had missed it. She closed her eyes, holding it tightly. A faint vibration came from the wall. Tap, tap, pause. Tap, tap. Her eyes widened. It was the old human rhythm, Evan's code. She moved closer to the wall and tapped back, slow, then quick, repeating the same pattern. The vibration returned, slightly stronger. He was alive, somewhere nearby. Her heart raced. She pressed her ear against the wall and listened. His signal spelled simple words, stay calm. I will find you. She smiled through tears. You always find me, she whispered. Hours passed. The guards changed shifts. The city above was restless. Rumors spread of the human still hiding in the lower tunnels. People whispered that he had come for the waiting girl, that he had defied both governments to keep his promise. In the cell, Lyra waited. She felt the walls tremble again, faint explosions far away. Then the lights flickered and went dark. The power grid was failing. Evan had made his move. Through the smoke vents, a shadow slipped inside. A hand touched the panel on her cuffs and they fell off with a soft click. She turned slowly. It was him. His face was dirty, his clothes torn, but his eyes were steady. Can you walk? He asked. She nodded. They moved quietly through the dark corridors. The alarm lights flashed red in the distance. They could hear guards shouting, but far away. Evan led her through maintenance shafts, following the same code he had mapped from her signal. When they reached the outer gate, Lyra stopped and looked back at the cell. I waited there too, she said softly. Evan smiled. You waited everywhere. They stepped out into the cold night. Rain began to fall, washing away the dust from their faces. The city glowed faintly in the distance. Where will we go? She asked. Somewhere they won't find us, he said. But first we must reach the old launch bay. She held the coin tightly. Its glow reflected in her eyes. Then let's go together this time, she said. They started walking through the storm, hand in hand. Behind them the sirens grew louder again. But neither looked back. Above them, thunder rolled across the twin moons, as if the heavens themselves were awake to their escape. The promise that once kept her waiting was now leading them both into the unknown. And somewhere deep beneath the city, the signal still blinked, proof that the bond between a human and an alien could not be broken by fear or time. The rain fell harder as Evan and Lyra moved through the empty streets. The lights of Valis Prime shimmered on the wet ground. Alarms echoed in the distance, faint but growing. Every shadow felt alive. Every sound could be a soldier. Evan kept his hand on the small pistol at his belt, scanning corners as they walked. Lyra's clothes were soaked, her silver blue hair sticking to her skin. Yet she didn't complain. Her glowing eyes stayed fixed ahead. The launch bay, she said softly. It's near the old trade docks. Evan nodded. We'll take the tunnels. The surface is too dangerous. They slipped through narrow alleys until they reached a metal grate half buried in rubble. Evan pulled it open and dropped inside first. The air below was cold and heavy. Pipes lined the tunnel walls, dripping with water. Lyra climbed down after him, holding the faintly glowing coin in her palm for light. They moved quietly through the tunnels. The hum of the city above sounded distant now, like thunder behind walls. Evan glanced at her. You're shaking, he said. I'm fine, she replied. I waited for this. I won't stop now. Her voice was calm but strong. It reminded him of that day long ago, when she stood trembling yet unafraid in the middle of chaos. After an hour of walking, they reached a junction where 3 tunnels split apart. The map on his wrist flickered, the signal weak. He frowned. They've jammed the tracking beacons. We'll have to guess. Lyra stepped forward, closing her eyes. The coin glowed brighter in her hand, pulsing softly. This way, she said. He looked at her, surprised. How do you know? The coin reacts to your ship's signal, she said. It's guiding us. Evan smiled faintly. You always find a way. They followed the glowing path. Water splashed under their boots. The tunnel grew narrower, filled with mist. At the far end, they could see faint daylight seeping through. But just before they reached it, they heard footsteps behind them, fast and heavy. Go, Evan said quickly. Don't stop. Lyra hesitated, but he pushed her forward. Run, she ran. Evan turned, firing a few shots toward the tunnel mouth. Sparks flew as bullets hit metal. Shadows of soldiers appeared behind the smoke. He threw a small flash charge and followed Lyra out. They emerged onto a rocky slope outside the city walls. The rain had stopped. Above them, the twin moons hung low, casting silver light across the landscape. The air smelled clean and sharp. Lyra turned back to him. They're close. I know, he said, breathing hard. We're almost there. Far in the distance, an old hangar stood half hidden behind cliffs. Its lights flickered weakly, abandoned but not dead. That was where his ship waited. They climbed over broken stone, moving as fast as they could. Lyra stumbled once, and Evan caught her before she fell. She looked up at him, smiling faintly. You always catch me, she whispered. I promised, he replied. They reached the hangar just as searchlights from patrol ships swept across the cliffs. Evan hurried to the control panel, but it was locked with alien code. He pulled out a small device and began hacking the interface. The screen blinked red, then green. The doors groaned open. Inside, the air was dry and still. His ship sat in the corner, scratched but intact. He climbed aboard and checked the systems. The engines coughed, then hummed to life. Get inside, he told her. Lyra paused at the door, looking back toward the city, glowing in the distance. It's strange, she said softly. For so long I waited there. Now I'm leaving and it feels unreal. He stepped closer. The promise wasn't about waiting. It was about living. Now we live. She nodded and entered the ship. The doors sealed shut behind them. Outside, bright beams from patrol ships crossed the sky. The ground trembled as explosions echoed nearby. Evan gripped the controls and lifted off. The ship shook, rising through wind and dust. Hold on, he said. Lyra closed her eyes, feeling the rumble under her feet. Through the cockpit glass, the twin moons glowed brighter than ever, lighting their path. A missile streaked past the hull, missing by inches. Another hit close behind, rocking the ship. Alarms blared, but Evan stayed calm. He pulled the throttle harder, pushing the old engine to its limit. The ship broke through the clouds, the light turning white and endless. When they finally cleared the atmosphere, silence filled the cabin. The stars stretched out before them. Evan looked at Lyra. She was watching the planet shrink below. I waited 500 days, she said softly. It was worth every one, he smiled. Now it's my turn to wait. I'll wait for the day they stop fearing us. Lyra turned toward him, her eyes shining. Then we wait together. The ship drifted under the twin moons, carrying them both into the unknown sky. Two souls bound by one promise that had survived war, time, and fire. And far below, the people of Vallis Prime looked up, watching the light fade, not knowing that their world had just witnessed the first act of peace. The stars stretched endless around them. The ship floated silently, its metal skin glowing faintly under the light of the twin moons. Inside the small cabin, only the soft hum of the engines broke the quiet. Evan sat at the controls, eyes tired but calm. Lyra sat beside him, watching the stars like they were alive. For the first time in 500 days, she was not waiting. She was moving forward. Evan looked at her reflection in the glass. We did it, he said quietly. She nodded. Yes, but they will come for us. He smiled faintly. Let them come. We already broke their rules. The silence after his words was warm. The tension of the last nights began to fade. Lyra leaned back, feeling her heartbeat slow. Her body still ached from running and fear, but her heart was steady. Outside, a streak of light crossed the darkness and a patrol ship searching below. Evan dimmed the cockpit lights and switched to stealth. We'll hide in the asteroid belt, he said. They won't find us there. The ship drifted into shadow, sliding between broken pieces of old rock. Dust clouds sparkled around them like tiny stars. Lyra stared at the sight, her voice soft. It's beautiful, she said. Evan nodded. Every time I look at space, I remember how small we are. And yet you waited for me. That's not small at all, she smiled. I waited because you gave me a reason to believe. No one ever did that before. For a while they said nothing. The silence felt peaceful. But the peace didn't last long. The radar blinked red. A small fleet appeared behind them. Alien patrols tracking their trail. Evan's jaw tightened. They're faster than I thought. Lyra looked at him calmly. You can't fight them. I don't plan to, he said, but I can still keep my promise. He switched the controls to manual and steered toward a nearby moon. The ship trembled as they entered its thin atmosphere. Lightning flashed across the gray surface. The patrol ships followed, their engines roaring behind them. Lyra held onto the seat. They won't stop. Neither will I, he said. He flew low over the rocky terrain, weaving between cliffs and craters. Energy blasts rained down around them. The ship shook violently, alarms screaming. But Evan kept going. His eyes stayed sharp, his hands steady. When they reached the far side of the moon, he saw a canyon opening below. Hold on, he said. We're going down. He guided the ship straight into the canyon. The patrols lost visual contact for a few seconds. It was enough. Evan powered down completely, letting the ship drift into a deep shadow under an overhang. They waited. The sound of engines roared above, then faded. Silence returned. Lyra exhaled slowly. We're safe, he whispered. Evan leaned back, closing his eyes. For now. She turned to look at him. His face was tired, his eyes red from sleepless nights. But there was something strong in his expression. Something she had seen from the very beginning. You risked everything to keep your word, she said softly. He looked at her, a faint smile on his lips. A promise means nothing until it's kept. Her hand moved slowly, resting over his. Then it means everything now. Outside, the moons aligned, their light spilling through the canyon entrance and washing over the ship. The glow reflected on her skin, on the coin still in her hand. It pulsed once more before fading and its purpose finally complete. Evan looked at it. That little coin held us together all this time, he said. Lyra nodded. It was never just metal. It was hope, he smiled. Then keep it. You earned it. She closed her fingers around it gently. Hours passed as they rested. When the scanners showed clear skies again, Evan restarted the engines. The ship rose from the shadows, climbing slowly toward the stars. What will you do now? She asked. He looked at her thoughtful. I'll find a world where no one calls humans and aliens enemies. Somewhere quiet, somewhere you can live without waiting. Lyra smiled. Then I'll stay there with you. He looked forward, his voice calm but full of feeling. Then the promise is complete. The ship glided through the light of the twin moons, breaking free into open space. Behind them, Vallis Prime shimmered faintly, the planet that had once held them apart. Ahead lay a new horizon, empty, endless, but theirs. Lyra watched the stars and whispered, I waited 500 days, and in the end, the one who returned wasn't just the human I met. It was the promise he carried. Evan turned to her, smiling softly. And you kept it alive. As their ship disappeared into the silver glow, the last signal from the planet below flickered out. The story of the waiting girl and the human who returned would spread across worlds, a story of trust stronger than fear, of faith that never faded, and somewhere among the stars, two hearts moved as one, proof that even in the vast silence of space, a promise once made could still echo forever.